Rubber company manufactures control panels for burglar alarms, a very profitable product. Every product comes with a 1-year warranty, offering free repairs if any faults arises in the period. So now you need to understand from both of the questions that I am underlining the important points or important aspects, because these are the aspects which we need to consider when we are analyzing or when we are writing our answer. It currently produces and sells 80,000 units a month, with the production of them being restricted by a short supply of labor. Each control panel includes two main components, one keypad and the one display screen. At present, Robber Company manufacture both of these components in-house. However, the company is currently considering outsourcing the production of keyboards and or display screens. A newly established company based in uh, Kyrgyzstan is keen to secure a place in the market and has offered to supply the keyboard for the equivalent of 4.1 per unit, and the display screen for the equivalent of 4.3 per unit. The price has been guaranteed for 2 years. Okay, so this price is fixed for the 2 years. Current and total annual cost of producing keyboard and the display screen are, so keyboards are 80,000 and display screens are 80,000 units. These are given in 100,000, so it means these are the total cost. If we need to convert in per unit, we will. Material cost for keyboard are expected to increase by 5% in the next 6 months. Material cost for the display screen only expected to increase by 2% with the immediate effect. So it will rise by 2% immediately, it will rise by 5% after the 6 months. Second one is direct labor are purely variable but and not expected to change over the next year. So it will remain the same. Next one is heat and power cost include an apportionment of the general factory overhead. It is apportionment. Apportionment is basically irrelevant cost for heat and power, as well as the cost of heat and power directly used for production of the keypads and the display screens. General apportionment is included using 50% of the direct labor cost for each component and would be incurred irrespective of whether the components are manufactured in-house or not. So he is saying that either you manufacture or not, you have to pay this cost and would be incurred irrespective of whether the components are manufactured in-house or not. It is called a period cost. Period cost means fixed cost. That's why I told you that a portion cost is irrelevant for decision making purposes. Machine costs are semi-variable. The variable component relates to setup cost, which are based upon the number of batches made. Keyboard pads machine has fixed cost of $4,000 per annum, and the display screen machine has a fixed cost of $6,000 per annum. While both components are currently made in the batches of 500, and this would need to change with immediate effect of batches of 400. So batch size is reducing. Then he is saying 60% of the depreciation and insurance costs relate to an apportionment of general factory depreciation and insurance. Remaining 40% is the specific to the manufacture of keyboard and display screen. So 40% specific is basically the relevant cost. Otherwise, depreciation is a non-cash item and it is irrelevant for decision making purposes. Advise Robert whether it should continue to manufacture the keyboard and display screens in-house or whether it should outsource their manufacture to supplier in Kyrgyzstan, assuming it continues to adopt a policy to limit manufacture and sales to 80,000 control panels in the coming year. Next one is rubber company takes zero point 0.5 labor hours to produce a keypad and 0.75 labor hours to produce a display screen. Labor hours are restricted to 100,000 hours and the labor is paid $1 per hour. Rubber company wishes to increase its supply to 100,000 control panels, that is 100,000 each of the keyboards and screens. Advise Robert as to how many units of the keyboard and display panel they should either manufacture or outsource in order to minimize their cost. So we will do part A first, then we will discuss this part B, and finally we have the non-financial factors in the part C. Okay. So we are going with the part A, starting with part A. We will calculate what we will say incremental or additional cost of making in-house than buying. Okay. Consideration is based on what? Consideration is based on relevant costing approach, either to add all the variable or relevant costs or to exclude all the irrelevant costs from the given total cost. Both of the value answers will be same. So this one is keypad, this one is display screen. Here we have keypad and here we have display screen. Okay. Now the first one is what? First one is variable cost. How many variable costs we have? We have basically the first one are material. Which material we have? We have material of 160,000 and producing how many units? Producing 60,000 euro, 80,000 units. But he is saying that after 6 months your cost will rise by 5%. And here he is saying that your cost will rise by immediately by 2%. So what will we say? We will calculate that material demand is 80,000 per annum divided by the 2, or you can say that demand is 160,000, cost is 160,000 divided by demand. We have $2 and another cost is rise by 5% of $2. It is 2.1. So 2 is multiplied by 50% demand, 40,000, and this 2.1 is multiplied by remaining 40,000, so 84,000. These are the two different cost of material. Here he is saying what? 116,000 in total divided by 80,000. So you have this much. Revised is what? Revised is 1.45 into 1.02 multiplied by your demand of 80,000. So you have 118,320 revised material cost. Understood? Next one is direct labor. For direct labor, he is saying that there will be no change. So no change, 40,000 and 60,000. Then we have the next one, heat and power. Heat and power is what? Heat and power is having 64,000 and 88,000. For heat and power, he is saying that there is a proportion of fixed amount of as well. So how much fixed amount we have? A portion of general factory overheads and the power, heat and power directly used for production, 50% of the direct labor cost of each component and would incur irrespective of whether the component is manufactured in-house or not. So it means half of the heat and power or half of the labor cost is the fixed cost. Remaining is variable. So you will do what? Heat and power. Total sum is 64,000 minus 50% of the labor cost. Labor cost is 40,000 into 0.5. So the remaining 44,000 is the relevant cost. Next one is same 88,000 minus 50% of this 60,000. 50% of this 60,000. So we have 58,000. Our heat and power cost. Next one is what? Our fixed machine cost. Here he is saying what? This one is the machine cost. For the machine cost, he is saying what? 60% of the depreciation and insurance. Machine costs are the semi-variable. The remaining, the variable elements relates to setup cost, which are based upon the number of batches made. Okay, half of the machine cost is basically fixed, and half is what? Half is uh, variable. And it is based on what? It is based on batches. Currently we are producing 500 batches, but now we will produce what? We will produce with immediate effect to the batches of 400. Okay, so we have to look at this cost of machine setup cost. It is 26,000 and 30,000. Out of 26,000, we have to eliminate the proportion of fixed part. And fixed part is 4,000, and here we have a fixed part of 6,000. So first we will calculate only variable proportion. 26,000 minus 4,000. So the remaining, it means 22,000 is what? 22,000 is the variable proportion. 22,000. And now he is saying what? While both components are currently made in the batches of 500, this would need to change with the immediate effect of batches of 400. So 20, we need to calculate what? Number of batches basically. Current is 80,000 divided by 500. So we have how many batches? 160. Revised is 80,000 divided by 400, 200 batches. And if we calculate batch cost, current batch cost, it is 22,000. It is variable cost divided by 160 batches. So we have 137.5 as a current variable batch cost or current batch variable cost. There is no rise in this cost. We simply know that how did we determine 22,000? We calculated or we determined variable proportion 26,000 minus 4,000, and here we will calculate 30,000 minus 6,000. Batches will remain the same 160 and the revised 200, but definitely batch cost will not remain the same 24 divided by 160, so it will be 150. So we are producing what we are producing or we vary at 150 variable cost per batch right now with respect to machine setup cost. Now we have to do what? If we are saying that revised batches are 200 into this cost, so 27,500 will be the revised cost, and here we are saying that same 200 batches into 150, so 30,000 is the revised cost. So we are done with the revised machine cost. Then we have depreciation and insurance. Depreciation and insurance. Depreciation and insurance includes what? It includes only the variable proportion or specific. 40% is specific and the remaining 60% is fixed. So simply we will calculate 40% of this amount, 84 and 96. So here this is the column of total 84,000 into 0.4, 96,000 into 0.4. So we have what? We have the 33,600 and 38,400. These are basically the relevant costs which we have to bear. Now we will add up these costs if we produce in-house. So here is equal to this plus this. You can use auto sum. And we have one more cost of fixed cost of machine. Now we are done with the material variable cost, fixed machine cost of 4,000. Here we will add up all these variable costs starting from this, then this, and this, and the last one is this one. So 304720, and here we have a fixed proportion of 6,000 fixed machine cost. So total sum is this plus this and this plus this, variable plus specific or relevant fixed cost. This is the incremental cost if we are producing in-house. These are the relevant cost of in-house production. Any question? Now we will compare it with the external supplier offer, that at what price external supplier is offering. External supplier is saying 4.1 and 4.3. So external supplier offer is equal to 4.1 into 80,000, 4.3 into 80,000. So definitely will you accept? You have to pay extra cost. So saving due to in-house manufacturing, you can calculate the saving this minus this amount and this minus this amount. So we will go for what? We will definitely go for in-house manufacturing, and we will not go for the external supplier. Why? Because external supplier is asking for higher value, right? Any question? And we have the saving if we produce in-house. This was the part A, and we are done with the part A. Now look at the part B. He is saying rubber company takes zero point 0.5 hours to produce a keyboard pad, and they have 0.75 hours to produce display screen. Currently labor hours are available at 100,000 and its cost is $1 per hour. Rubber company wishes to increase its supply to 100,000 control panels, that is 100,000 each of the keypads and display screens. So you want to raise from 80,000 to where? From 80,000 to 100,000. So you want to do what? You want to decide which one of the product must be produced completely in-house and which one to purchase from the external supplier. You are not provided with your own selling prices, that's why you cannot contribution per unit, but you are provided with the selling prices of the supplier. So in this situation what will we do? We will assume that our selling price and supplier selling price both is same, and supplier is asking for 4.1 for keypads and 4.3 for display. We are already done with the variable cost, and our variable cost of a keypad and the display screen is provided. Variable costs are basically these two costs. This is the first one is the material cost, second one we have labor cost, and the third one we have what? Machine cost. Rest we divided the proportion of fixed cost into specific and non-specific. So we have 80,000, then 84,000, then we have labor cost of 40,000, and then we have machine setup cost of 27,500. So first four variable costs are basically 231,000. If I add up all these values, so we will start calculate contribution per unit, selling price per unit. Just like the last question, we are following the steps of single limiting factor. It is 4.1 just as suppliers. Then we have variable cost per unit. How to calculate is equal to this amount plus this labor cost and plus this machine cost. Sum of these values is divided by 80,000. Sum of these values is divided by 80,000. It is 2.89. Similarly here, this plus this plus this divided by 80,000. 2.60. Now we can calculate what? Now we can calculate contribution per unit. 1.2 and 1.69. Now we have contribution per hour, and we need what? 0.5 labor hours and points for keypad, zero point 0.5 and 0.75. So contribution per unit is divided by 0.5. It is divided by 0.75. So now we will perform ranking. Ranking says it is first. This one is at second. So this is the ranking. We have available hours of what? We have available hours of 100,000. So we will use our available hours for the higher contribution generating product. And how many labor hours are we are using? We will say that labor hours used by keypad is equal to 100,000. We are trying to increase the demand in 2.5. 50,000 hours are used by keypad. Now you have remaining what? You have remaining 50,000 as the balancing figure. Balancing figure. And how many units can be produced? Units of key units of display screen can be produced is equal to 50,000 divided by 0.75. So 66,667 units can be produced. Remaining what? Remaining 100,000 is the maximum minus this. This needs to be outsourced. Needs to be outsourced. So we will outsource only what? Only display screens. And we have to outsource what? 33,334 display screens. So this is the requirement of the part B. Anyone, any question? Advice how many units, and they should either manufacture. We are done with this calculation. Discuss the non-financial factors that Robert should consider when making a decision about outsourcing the manufacture of keypad and display. There are number of outsourcing factors. Number one, there could be issues with supplier performance like color, features, delay in delivery, and etc. There could be loss of reputation or loss of customer in this situation. Next one is potential supplier is a new company So that's why there could be operational issues and we are not certain that they can fulfill our demand on time or not. Next one is they guaranteed us price for 2 years, but there is no guarantee that price will rise with how much percentage after 2 years. Next one is there is always a possibility that supplier can become our competitor. So these are the factors which needs to be considered when you are going for outsourcing. Anyone? Any question? So if you have no question, then we are done with today's session.